Hello, hello, hello. Hello, testing, testing. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. I'm just putting up the chat next to me. Just double checking. Hello, hello. Bonsoir. How are you guys doing? Good. Looks like everything is working. Perfect. Do I sound like a robot again? Or just sick? 'Cause that's what I am right now. Sick. Okay, so looks like everything is working. So far, I'm just getting the chat from Twitch and Facebook. So if there's anyone in YouTube, just let me know. You speak French, very good. No, not really. All right, cool. So I don't know if you can hear in my voice, but I'm feeling a little bit sick today. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it all the way through, and yeah, so we're gonna give it a go, and I might not be talking as much as other streams, which may be a good thing. So it will be more of like a chill session to sculpt stuff. But we'll see how we go. I took a couple of pills that should keep me going for these hours. I have a pretty awesome thing to share with you guys. I'll do it in a little bit. We're just gonna wait until everyone joins. But just to give you a little hint of what it is, let me just bring this guy up. I had him hidden, so it's more of a dramatic reveal. Right. So this is a creature that I've been working on for the past few months. Not that it has taken me a few months to do it. This is actually something that I put together in 5 days. So I completed this creature in 5 days, but I've been working. So the whole thing, the sculpting, the painting, the posing, everything else for this creature, I've been working on a system. So it's been taking me a few months to prepare everything in a way that I can kind of like share it in a very systematic way. And sometimes when I tell this to people about the system or the steps, some people might think that it just takes the artistic part away from it, as in, if it is too systematic, if it is too step by step, then you lose that creativity. And I would argue is the opposite. So if you have some kind of structure, it doesn't have to be like, we're gonna make an eye and this is the steps to do the eye, but if you have a structure, it gives you more freedom to explore things because you know what the next step would be, and then you can explore that step that you're currently in. Anyway, that's all to say that it's taking me a few months to set everything up, but the actual production of this creature that you can see here, it's about 5 days. And the reason I'm doing that is because, or sharing this with you, is because today I made public the enrollment for a creature workshop in ZBrush and Photoshop. And I'll share all the details with you guys in just a second. But yeah, I'm super excited about this. This is basically the type of creature, not that we're gonna make this one specifically, but the level of quality and the level of finish that we're gonna be creating for the workshop. It's a 5-day workshop, intensive workshop, and it's coming up in June. It's live, so I will share the link with you guys in just a second. But yeah, you can just go ahead. I have limited seats, obviously, because it is a live workshop, so not I won't be able to have lots of people. And yeah, so the inscriptions or the tickets are already available. And if you go to, let me just share, I'll share a couple of times. So if you go to the 3D Concept Artist website or directly to the Creature Workshop, which I will share with you guys in the chat. I don't know what happened there. Let me just do it again. Anyway, if you go to the 3D Concept Artist website and click on grab your spot, it should send you to the link. There we go. Right? Hey Camilo, awesome. Saludos desde Costa Rica. Excelente. Great. All right, so yeah, that's that's basically what I wanted to share with you guys. I'm super pumped with this. You can just go to this website and see what it's all about. When the times, it's gonna be 9 a.m. my time, so pretty much this time right now that you can see these live lessons. But it's gonna be for a whole week, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday my time. So for most people, I'm like one day ahead because I'm in Australia. So it would be Sunday to Thursday, but depends on your time zone. But here you can see the whole production. Here's how we start. I just did a quick GIF to showcase the process. We go through everything from design, like in 2D, if anything, designing, blocking, sculpting, poly painting, everything, all the way to Photoshop. So all you need is a working copy of ZBrush and maybe Photoshop or any other image editing software like Affinity Photo or GIMP. And yeah, so you can just go to at the bottom. There's some FAQs. The price is $257 USD. And yeah, all of that, all the information is in here. If you're interested, like I said, it's gonna be super cool. And I just wanted to show you that because today is the kind of like the release date that I'm sharing publicly. If you're in my email list, I had shared that before. But yeah, so I have limited seats. That's why I wanted to show you guys. I know that I appreciate all the support and everything that you guys do for me as well. So just the fact that you're being here, watching this and me talking sometimes rubbish is great. So I just thought I share it with you guys. If you specialize in modeling mesh, how much mind can you spare for learning about textures and other aspects of 3D art? I would say it depends on how specialized you want to be, but you could be as specialized as you want to in other areas that is not just modeling. Usually when it's a quick, it's not a quick, but like a different way to think about it is in a T shape. So let's see if I can just give you an idea to answer that question. And we're gonna get started with, actually, let me, well, I'll leave it here. That's what I wanted to show you. I'll answer that question in just a second. And today we're gonna work on a semi-related stuff, so some creature stuff. I want to show you some blend shapes and layers because it's something that I've been also working on, and I think I can share a couple of interesting stuff. So hopefully, let me just show you. So to answer that question, if you imagine your pool of knowledge and specialized knowledge or training that you've done in a T shape, this is kind of like finding your T's. So if this is obviously the T shape, so you would have probably, let's say, this is kind of like general knowledge, and here we have deep. Hang on. Kind of. So you have a deep understanding of something in this axis and general knowledge in that axis. So what that means in that T shape is that you can focus on something like go really, really deep. So for instance, I would say that in my T of knowledge, I have ZBrush right here. Right? So I feel very comfortable with ZBrush and I use it for a lot of things. So I would say ZBrush is here. Let's say maybe Photoshop is about here, and I'm talking about like specifics of software, then you can have another T or another of these graphics for more conceptual stuff. So I would say if I'm talking about, let's say this yellow is tools and this green one is concepts or like theory, right? So I would say character design and creature design and that sort of thing is also kind of like a deep understanding of that, and but I don't have much experience with environments, so environments could be here. Same thing, I'm not you know I don't have like a lot of knowledge about Unreal Engine. I have like a good idea of how it works, so I can make things happen in that software, but I don't have a lot of knowledge of how like shading works and all of that in that specific tool, so it would be also around here. Houdini, I know a little bit about it, that sort of thing, right? So this is kind of like, in a way, to answer that question, you can have lots of things that you sort of understand and know about it, like in a general sense. But if you want to specialize, then you pick a few areas that you just go deep, and that's the idea with the T. So you have like horizontal axis for general understanding of things, and then you go really deep in terms of learning a tool and that sort of thing. So it could be the same thing for learning modeling or sculpting or that sort of thing. And then, so essentially what I'm saying is you could have your modeling skills perfectly tuned, but then you also have some texturing in case you need to do it, but it's not an essential skill, if that makes sense. So my purpose, and that's, I don't know if it would be the same for everyone, but my idea is to bring that T to a cube. So taking all of these knowledge and try to go a little bit deeper. But obviously that's just an utopia and an ideal. It's kind of like hard to get to that point. But yeah, so I don't know if that's maybe too abstract. I don't know. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. Hello, what do you use to merge subtools, booleans, or dynamesh? I just you hang on. So there are two concepts there. Maybe I'm not getting it. I'm not getting the question, but to merge subtools, you just merge them from here, and then just combine two objects. If you mean to take separate objects and make them into a single mesh, that means Dynamesh or booleans is any of those. If I use booleans, it's probably just to keep very hard surface details and then do the retopology. If I'm doing organic stuff and I need to further sculpt things, I will probably go with Dynamesh or Boolean and Dynamesh. All right, so yeah, we'll come back to this creature later on, but again, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna take a sphere, make it a polymesh 3D. And by the way, if you are in my email list as well, I did a trick, or I showed a trick on how to create eyes the easy way, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna do kind of like the practical example of that email that I sent out in here today, just to give you another set of tools that you can use. But obviously, we need kind of like a creature to put those eyes in. So it's gonna be a creature where the eyes are gonna be the focus, or like a pretty big feature. All right, so we're gonna keep it simple. This is just a simple sphere. I have the move brush and I have AccuCurve just to block something in. And if I hold Control, I can use my mask lasso. I'm also gonna turn off perspective for the time being. I have symmetry enabled, and yeah, so let's just do some kind of creature. I don't know. So this is gonna be the neck of the creature. We probably need to dynamesh that. Oops. Let's see. Let's go for pretty low res. That's fine. And I'm gonna polish. And let's give it a bit of a body, not too much. something that we can sort of use to pull things. Dynamesh and smooth. All right. So one thing that I like to do with this type of really quick sketches or ideas, because right now, if you look at it from the top up, it's just a sphere. What I like to do is use the damp standard brush, right? The one that you sort of carve in, and yeah, basically use it as a knife to cut the areas that I want to explore a little bit further, and we can increase the resolution a tiny bit more, just double what we had. Yeah, so that we can see those carvings. So this is not like detailed, right? So I'm not gonna start doing these as the eyes just to create details. I literally just wanna go like very loose, like like whole motions, not with the wrist, but with the whole arm on the tablet, like that, just to figure out areas that I can explore. So I'm gonna hold the Alt key as well, just to create the opposite. So the Alt key inverts the effect. This is the normal effect. So with that, I can just go ahead and do this, sort of like carve a little bit of the ideas. Right. So this is kind of like doing the sketchy bit in 2D, for example. But yeah, hopefully you can see there's already kind of like a fly creature appearing, or some kind of fish. We'll see. We'll see how we go. Yeah, so with those carvings, with those lines, you start to see stuff, and that's the whole idea, just to keep it very, very loose when you're designing these type of things. But now we can basically create a couple of eyes as a reference. Again, this is the idea. I want the eyes to be kind of like a big feature, and then work around the eyes basically, because they're going to be a prominent area of the face. And by all means, guys, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, whether it's related to what I'm doing or related to the the creature workshop that I just opened up. If you have any questions about that, so let me know. Alrighty. Yeah, so there are multiple ways of doing the same thing in ZBrush. To me, one of the easiest things to do is for making eyes, or at least to have the base, is to have to use the macro. So if you go at the top, we have the macro, right? So this is a macro that comes with ZBrush. It's called append eyes. Make sure that if you have symmetry enabled, make sure that local symmetry is off. Otherwise, it will create just one on one side. So yeah, if you go to macros and you click on append eyes, so we're just going to append a couple of spheres in a separate subtool, this one right here, and just going to give it a toy plastic and a black color. So I'm going to turn off the polypaint so that you can see. Those are the eyes. And now we can go ahead and enable local symmetry so that we can scale this on its axis, like so. And I'm just going to place it. I'm going to turn on transparency as well. This guy is going to have massive eyes. I'm going to try to keep the silhouette for the most part the same. Push it forward a bit. Okay, so done. I have the eyes there. We're gonna come back to this, and these are kind of like placeholders. But yeah, we have pretty much all we need to start refining and actually build the creature. In the chat is asking, what tools did you use to create the shoulder forms? The shoulder forms of this creature, or the one for the workshop? Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, if you can clarify, I'll happy to answer. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna keep using the same tools to refine the placement of, let's say, the head. And this part for me really is just chilling, nudging things into place. And I'm also using the smooth brush, so you can see that some of the markings are going to disappear anyway. They're just purely sketching lines. I think I like more, let me just undo that, because I think I like the fact that the eyes come out quite a bit without anything else, as in any supporting mass in this area. We'll just refine that later. And I think I'm gonna make this guy a little bit skinnier. Right. So I think that works just fine as a starting point. I'm gonna increase the resolution a tiny bit, redynamesh everything, maybe polish everything just to smooth everything out. And again, go back with the damp standard brush and just try to find a good sense of how this weird creature anatomy might work. And again, holding the Alt key is just going to push things out. So that's a quick and easy way to create this type of eyelids. But those are not going to be the final ones anyway. And I'm going to bring in maybe the clay brush just to, because all of these areas started to get a little bit bumpy and yeah, a bit lumpy. So that's why I try to keep everything pretty low res for as long as I can. But these ones are just easy way, like a simple way to clean this up is just with the clay brushes. So I have a custom clay brush, but it's based on the clay buildup anyway. I think the only thing that I change is the roll distance, and I don't even remember if the alpha. No, the alpha I think is the same. There might be a couple more things. I can't remember what I tweaked, but it's pretty much the same. It just creates less of those sort of like these lines going across. And now for me, the whole point is just to simplify the forms even further. I think it looks kind of, I don't know. There's something there. And this is, for the most part, this is kind of like how I feel about any design that I start. I tend to sort of like look at it from different angles and see whether or not it has potential or if I like certain things. But it's very rare that I stick with the first approach or the first design, the first idea. So I don't know if I'm happy with the mouth area anyway. So yeah, because it looks kind of like a turtle, and I don't want that. Just gonna remove that idea of the mouth and change things a bit. Yeah, maybe something like that. Redynamesh, and then go back with the clay. Simplify the forms a bit more. And we can even go back in resolution and sort of make sure that all those primary forms are actually working. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't mean that if you have, if you already have heaps of resolution, that you cannot go back and redefine things. This is kind of like the ideal process if you have multiple subdivision levels. But in this case, we're just sketching. So I'm not too attached to, little details or anything like that. This is just the beginning. All right, so I'm going to take the standard brush now. And I'm going to use it to kind of like in a similar way as how I use the damp standard brush, but this time it's just to add volume, obviously. So it just helps to define certain areas, and I can come back with the clay brushes and help redefine them again. But as a starting point, this is a great brush, obviously, to generate some more volume. So I can, for instance, here with the jaw, I can go ahead and do this, and that just gives it a bit more, of an angle. There we go. All right. So we have a decent sketch now. So I think what I want to do is actually show you kind of like an interesting process of using blend shapes just to test out the design. As in, sometimes you have to figure out how this actually works in the real world, or if it exists, for example. So how this guy's gonna open the mouth and that sort of thing, or the expression, having those big eyes. So what I'll do is maybe work on this guy kind of like in an in between, like if you were to do this in animation, probably you might want to have the creature or the character, whatever you do, in a neutral pose with no expression, and kind of like if you were to create the mouth for rigging and an animation for rigging before animation, you might just want to have something with the mouth slightly open so that it's easy to generate that different range of movement, for instance. It's not always the case. Same thing with a T-pose or a T-pose versus an A-pose. Anyway, so that's kind of like a bit more technical, but just thinking about that, we can go ahead and sculpt that way. So I'm going to use the masking brush to sort of mask the jaw, right? And I'm going to blur it a little bit, bring in the gizmo, center it around this area where the jaw would be. And I think I'm going to have to mask this properly. All right. I'm just opening the mouth a bit. What I would, I don't know, maybe it's too much. But this is kind of like what I think is an in-between. This guy could open the mouth a lot more and close it. So yeah, something like that, right? and we can redynamesh obviously, and then we can use the select lasso just to hide a portion here, and delete hidden, and redynamesh that. Yeah, well, let's just redynamesh anyway. You could do that in a different way with clipping brushes, but let's just do that. Redynamesh. So I'm just using the move brush to kind of like create this mouth back. And you don't have to do it this way. Like I said, there's many ways of doing the same thing in ZBrush. This is just what I thought could be a good process just to show you. But yeah, doesn't have to be like that. All right, still pretty low res, but we can, keep working on this at this resolution until we, refine certain things. Obviously, because we changed the shape, obviously, there could be some redistribution of masses in a way, or like, some ligaments or some muscles will be pulling and pushing the skin and that sort of thing. But at this point, we are pretty safe, as in this is pretty sketchy anyway. Maybe it would bulge here a bit more. We lose definition and maybe have some indication of wrinkles forming in here with, there's gonna be a bit of fat accumulated here around the bottom of the neck. But again, just an indication, not details or anything like that. All right, so let's add some more well-defined eyelids, for instance. Add some like what it would be the equivalent of the skeleton inside, like with just the jaws, or something to indicate that there's like some teeth in there. And yeah, and then we go to the eyes and then do the rest. So hopefully that's interesting. Let me see the chat. Hola Alejandro, ¿todo bien? So Gabriel is asking, in case I lose my symmetry, how do I recover it? At this stage, for me, the simplest thing would be to do a mirror and weld. So if I, for some reason, I do something like that, right? And I start destroying this, oh, I forgot, I'm not doing it in symmetrical mode, because this is just a sketch. As I'm starting, I can just go ahead and do mirror and weld, and that's for you guys should be on their geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld, and it usually takes the positive to the negative or the negative to the positive, from the left side to the right hand side, right? And that just covers that. And because it's a dynamesh, it doesn't really matter, and it gives you that sort of center line, and you can redynamesh if you want to. Okay, so to do that kind of like teeth, maybe let's go for append cylinder, go into solo mode. Let's use this as a base, and so I'm going to use the select lasso, symmetry. I want to hide portion of it, delete hidden, and I can use the C modeler for this, or nowadays for me with like single-sided meshes like this, it's a lot easier to go to dynamic subdivision, make it dynamic, turn off the smooth, increase the thickness like so, and just apply that, and I'm just gonna double check. Yep. Sometimes if you have double enabled, you don't see, and you might have like inverted normals, so just double checking that you can see everything all right. yeah, and this could be, we can do a zero measure of this, or we can dynamesh that as well. Probably, let's just dynamesh it. Yeah, make it a single polygroup, and I'm just gonna polish this. There we go. And I might have to pull this down a bit. All right, so this is gonna be the base for those teeth. Just a quick and easy way to get something going. All right, and for the teeth themselves, what I'll do is let's go for IMM primitive, and any of these will do. Polysphere. I have symmetry enabled, and I'm gonna start from here, just before they touch. Whoops. Let's just push these down the depth so that when I draw it, it sort of like goes embedded into it. So this thing for you guys should be under the brush palette depth. So this one right here. You can change with IMM brushes depending on which one you select. They have their own independent depth. So if I go to this one, you'll see it resets. This one, I just pushed it down, and that center line is kind of like the surface, and the middle point is the middle point of the sphere. So literally, and just so you know how this works, so literally if you take this sphere, like the size of the sphere, in this case it's exactly the same thing as that white line or outline, and the surface, right, this surface that I'm sort of drawing the pieces, that's maybe the best color to do it. So this surface right here, that's the indication of that surface is this line in here. So when I draw this line or this sphere in this area, it's gonna be halfway embedded into it. So that's what I want. Or you can push it more or less, up to you. So I'm gonna do that. Let's do some canines, although this is kind of like a fish creature. Doesn't matter. Maybe you know what? Let's just make some really thick teeth. Don't know. Might be interesting. Yeah, all right. Clear that mask. And because we're using this IMM brush, we have different polygroups, which is great. So what I'll do is switch to the move standard, the move topological that would respect topology. So essentially, when I click on this point, it's not gonna affect the rest. And that's how I can just very quickly adjust the shape of these spheres at this point, just to make it look more like a teeth, like tooths or teeth. I always get confused with the plural of that. Yeah, all right, so pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna make this a bit more pointy. In fact, let's make everything kind of like serrated teeth. And at this point, if I want to redynamesh, if I go ahead and click and drag to redynamesh, ZBrush is going to combine everything together, right? Which I don't want to do it. I want to keep them separate. So I could just split it. So, hide this and split the teeth. So again, many different ways to do it. In this case, I prefer to just use groups. So in Dynamesh, I can redynamesh everything at the current resolution and then just keep groups. However, in this case, sort of like merge these two together because they're very close and they're the same group. So I can just do an auto group and maybe increase the resolution a tiny bit and do that. And let's go ahead and polish everything. And let's do a bit more refinement maybe without the polygroups on. It's kind of like a molar maybe. I don't know. Push this down a bit more. All right, so we have that base, and what I can do is hide this for a second, mask everything, invert the mask, and then use something like the clay brushes yeah, let's go for the clay brushes and just change things a bit, just to add some volume as an indication that there actually some bony structure underneath there. We can use the standard brush as well. And maybe use the move brush as well to embed those tooth a bit more. Those teeth. See, this is what I mean. Okay, clear that mask. That's actually not bad. It's kind of like a crown. Interesting for another design. We'll see. But now we have that, and we can turn off symmetry, reset that rotation, bring that down, and scale it down. Actually, let's rotate that first, 180 degrees. Holding shift, and that's gonna be the one at the top, like the upper area. And I'm gonna rotate it like so, maybe scale it like that. Yeah, something like this, and let's just duplicate, rotate 180 degrees again, push it down, and it's gonna be slightly smaller, maybe more compact. And yeah, so now we can go into solo mode if we want to. What happened there? All right, and use the move brush back to symmetry. I'm gonna push this back a bit, maybe with the move topological actually. Yeah, so now we have that as a reference point as well. We can take this, going back to this kind of like the head. And I thought, what was the other thing I was gonna do? Oh, the eyelids. So I'm gonna use the curved tubes, and I see some activity here in the chat. Let me just check. Why is the second object disappeared? I don't know at what point you asked that, but I'm using solo mode quite a bit. So when I select something and I go into solo mode, it just hides everything else temporarily so I can focus on one thing. Gabriel, ¿usas las brochas de clay brush de ZBrush o has creado tus propias? So Gabriel is asking about the clay brushes, which ones I use. I do use the ones that come with ZBrush, but I have a series of custom brushes as well. Some of them based on the standard brushes, some of them based on the clay ones. I actually have a set of clay dedicated pack. So in my brushes, I have the digital clay brushes. So I'm not sure if you've seen those ones. They're available in the ZBrush Guides website. But yeah, you can, if I use this one, and if I divide this a few times, this is just to generate that sort of clay fill in the sculptures. So they're not necessarily for sculpting. It's more like, a little bit, but to refine things like that. Don't do that. So yeah, I use them quite a bit. Juan Carlos Romo. So Juan Carlos is asking if I, based on my portfolio, you've seen some of the work that I've done that looks kind of comic. Do you have any course tutorial about that type of render? Greetings from Czech Republic and speaking Spanish. Interesting. Yeah, again, just for those of you who weren't here before, I just released this creature workshop. So it's gonna be a live workshop, not this one actually, for this creature. And this is not necessarily the one that we do in the workshop. It's just to give you a rough idea of what the type of creature and the type of project we'll be working on. But yeah, so if you go to the ZBrush, to the 3D Concept Artist website, I'll just put a link in the chat. So the first thing that you see is the link to that creature workshop. So you can just go through all the details of the workshop if you're interested. It's going to be a live workshop of 5 intensive days. So I basically block my calendar to not do anything for that week, but ZBrush related stuff. So that's why I'm like really excited. I'm basically change all my stuff so that I have that week dedicated to, you know, whoever obviously joins and do ZBrush stuff. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, point is that if you go to the 3D Concept Artist, there are a bunch of courses and things that you might want to do. So one of them is the ZBrush for Illustrators course. So if you click on that one, it will send you to that that page. And this one is based, they're like the recordings of another live workshop that I did a while back. And essentially that's what it is, right? It just takes you from the very beginning of the, you know, concept, the creation of like stuff in ZBrush or meshes to create a comic, you know, comic style render. So you might have seen this one in my portfolio, this harvester's kind of like cover. This one is done 100% in that course. Again, it's just a short intensive course of 1 week that we did, and these are the recordings of it. So there are the recordings of the live workshop basically. And yeah, you can see some of the amazing work from the students. Oh, this one is not working, but anyway, Antonio did this awesome kind of like angel floating rock. Mattia did this also pretty cool stuff. So these are some examples of the students, what they've done in the course, which is pretty cool. But yeah, you can have a look at this type of illustration. That's what I teach in that course if you're interested. So it's dedicated for ZBrush for illustrators. Hopefully that helps. And this is the creature workshop that you can also have a look. Again, I'll just put a link. I don't want to spam the whole. No, you guys can do it. I'm not going to spam the chat. You can go to the ZBrush 3D Concept Artist website, 3dconceptartist.com website, and then find it in there. So hopefully, yeah, that gives you a rough idea. Hey, Pablo, if you have to start the whole body, you choose a sphere and Dynamesh to build it for a sphere. It really depends on what the outcome is or how I want to approach. That's kind of like it's a very generic question because it would depend on the project basically. That's what I'm saying. So I would just take a sphere and start pushing things out. I have more control if I block things first. So, you know, someone might be more comfortable just, you know, masking an area like this and then you know, taking the gizmo and extruding that right like that. Oh, I don't know what I did there, but it's not good. Oh, I didn't have symmetry. Yeah, so if I were to do the body, you could just mask that area, bring in the gizmo, and start doing that and sorting out the rest, right? I personally prefer to, instead of doing that, I prefer to have individual pieces that I can use to block, the body. And the only reason I do that is because it allows me to have more control over those primary shapes, which for me, you know, are the most important thing really. The secondary forms. All right, so I'm gonna take the tubes, and what I'll do is I'm gonna go to the picker, change depth to constant. So that thing that I just did there very quick, the default tubes are set to be once Z, and I just change it to continuous Z, meaning that ZBrush is going to, every time or as I move my stroke, it's going to evaluate the surface. So in other words, it's going to stick to what I do, right? So these things are going to stick. That's actually kind of cool to do something. Anyway, that's for another thing. And yeah, so I'm going to do this around this eye, and that's going to be one of my eyelids, or an indication of that, right? And Do the same thing for the bottom one. And that's it. Clear the mask. And now we can use something like the move topological, maybe smooth things out a bit. And being able to control this. This is the reason why I said instead of just doing everything from a single mesh or a single sphere, I feel I have more control over the main shapes, which are really important if I do it like this. And this is part of the techniques and everything that I cover in the creature workshop that I'm talking about. So all of those ideas and why I do certain things the way that I do them. Again, it's a more in-depth course or workshop to understand where you want to go, as in you have a goal in mind. So what is the best, most efficient approach to get there? All right. So now I'm going to use the damp standard brush. And I'm going to hold the Alt key just to push these areas out even more. And we can go ahead and redynamesh the whole thing with maybe a little bit more resolution, maybe more than that. All right. So what I did really with the eyelids, it's kind of like the same thing as if in real clay. If you're sculpting with real clay, like taking pieces and then just place them first and then use other tools to sort of like smudge them and blend them with the rest. But you have more control over the initial placement. I suppose that's the takeaway of that approach. How are we doing with time? Oh, we have plenty of time. I want to do the eyes as well, showing you that technique or that trick with the eyes. So if you are in the email list, if you subscribe to my email list, you probably already know what I'm talking about. I just want to give you another little demo of that technique or that trick, but in real time, showing you how quick that is. And I feel like this guy needs more of a chin. Something a bit more interesting than that. This is what I mean, that it's not, I don't know, like when I'm designing this type of creatures, I spend a lot of time looking at it from different angles and do like little tweaks. So if I were doing this in kind of like for a, I don't know, for like a freelance job of creatures, it wouldn't be as fast as what I'm doing here. I'm kind of like making decisions in terms of design as I go, but I'm more trying to get something finished for you guys to have an idea of the entire process or a little bit of the techniques that I use. But if I were to do this more consciously, this stage of just like staying in Dynamesh with a low res could take a little bit longer, just because I tend to change things like what I just did there for the chin, which again is just something to try out, and I'm not 100% sure either if it's gonna stick, but something to try. I'm just gonna exaggerate this, what it could be the cheekbone. Let's work on some kind of nose or nostrils. Yeah, this guy is kind of like definitely some kind of reptile thing. I'm going to increase the resolution a bit as well. And now what I mean, like I said, I'm trying to move a little bit faster than usual, but with the damp standard brush at this point is similar to what I did at the beginning, trying to figure out areas that I can, further refine or explore. Whereas in this case, it's just more about, defining in, let's say, the nose, right? So I'm just using that to define the nose. But at the same time, I'm thinking about how that weird nose works, and if at this point that is kind of like in between expressions, what does that mean for the rest of the face? So what is this flesh or area is going to pull in terms of the dermis of the creature? So everything is, everything is anchored to something. That's kind of like an important thing to remember when, at least for me, when I'm designing these type of things. There's anchorage. Otherwise, things wouldn't move, especially for this type of creature stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking as I define this with these cuts and these lines. But anything can change at this point. Still pretty rough, pretty sketchy. I don't like the chin anymore, so I'm just gonna flatten that quite a bit. Let's use the clay brushes faster. I think that's a bit more interesting, something a bit different, like some kind of bony protrusions in this area. And we can extend that idea of that pattern, that design a bit more. Yeah, so this is what I mean, right? It's like I tend to just spend time in the design, just figuring out those things and making sure that they work fine, and it's not like the typical thing. At least that's what I like to do. Um, and another big thing for me in terms of designing this type of creatures is the fact that they might need some kind of background story to go along with it. So as I do these things, I try to find, like if I have a story, I try to find, I, I try to justify what I'm doing based on the story. So why this creature has these weird things in these areas, like what's the evolutionary purpose of these in their species or things like that, and whether it's the environment that sort of push these changes in the biology of this creature or not. So hopefully that makes sense. But I'm gonna try to move a little bit faster. So let's look in those changes. Let's say that we're happy with those, and maybe work on the eyes. Right? And it's still super sketchy. but at least you can get an idea of what this is. All right, cool. So I'm gonna take a quick break. I need to have another another pill for my flu cold and bring some water. So give me 2 minutes. I'll be back in just a second. And yeah, and I have a look at the chat as well. Good day from Aussie land. How you doing, Peter? So cool. All right. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be back, and I'll have a look at the chat. All right, I'm back. Cool. Alrighty. So what I'll do just to be able to get to those those things that I said that I wanted to do with this creature, in terms of the, oops, there's a little bit of a, just got frozen a couple of times in there. Don't know why it's doing that. Yeah. So I'm going to maybe just refine this first. Just add some more volume here to the, what could be the lips of this creature. Okay. Again, still super sketchy, but what I'll do is let's do the eyes trick that I mentioned, that I've been sort of like talking about, and then we can do the layers, because my ZBrush is getting a little bit laggy, so I have to start things again. Actually, let me just do that, just that we can continue working a little bit more smoothly for the next thing. So yeah, give me 2 seconds. I will restart ZBrush and I'll be back again. All right, all sorted. So, yep, like I was saying, let's do the eyes, and then we do the layer stuff. So for the eyes, the trick that I sent out in the one of the techniques that I sent out in the email for those who are in the email list was to use any matcap and use an actual image in the matcap to drive whatever eye you want. So you can create a whole library of eyes that way with just simple images that would work just fine in ZBrush. The trade-off, or the kind of like the weird thing, is that the whatever you're sculpting is constantly judging you because it is based on a matcap, so it's always looking at the camera in a way, so it's perpendicular to the camera. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to jump into Photoshop very quickly, and let's just paint a background with a very neutral gray, so 128 for the RGB colors. So that's neutral gray. And in a new layer, I'm just gonna take an ellipse tool. Let's make it red so that you guys can see, and make sure that it's covered that entire square. And I'm gonna use these kind of like as a reference color to build the eye. So this would be just a 2D image, but then you can use that in ZBrush to drive the eye, which is awesome. So I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna clip that to the sphere, and I'm gonna use a soft brush first, and we can bring in some kind of radial symmetry as well. Just hide the symmetry, and let's paint this eye. So it's gonna be kind of like a, I don't know, fish or creature eye. So I'm using the same sort of radial symmetry idea as you would sculpt in ZBrush, but obviously in 2D in Photoshop, but just trying to recreate that sort of idea of three-dimensional sphere, like an eye, right? Add some details here as well. Anything that is like too small a detail, like is very like if it is very prominent, like these little marks that I'm doing, that's gonna come out as a reflection almost. It's kind of like creating a specular for a metallic sphere in a way. Which, so if you add this material that I'm building, or this image, if you add that to, let's say, a cube or a different shape that is not a sphere, then it's not gonna look like an eye. It's just gonna look like a weird distorted thing. I don't know. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. It's not gonna be perfect, but again, you'll have the idea of what I'm doing, hopefully. All right, so I'm gonna turn off the symmetry now and try to get something a bit more interesting, so it's not such a repetitive pattern. All right, and just to wrap it up, let's add some. Let's the actual pupil. Make something weird. Something like that. Again, this is you can use like real images. You can actually get an eye from one of those websites, the high-res macro eyes, and then just use that. All you have to do is make sure it fits within that sort of square portion. But just additionally to that, so it's just like a simple painting of a weird looking eye. So if I add another clipping mask, what I'll do as well with a soft large brush is to maybe add a bit of a highlight, kind of like embedded here on the eye, just a tiny bit. And this is kind of like to fake that concave nature of the iris, although this whole thing is it's an eye, it's an iris. And then another layer just to maybe add some darker areas here at the top. Let's put that to multiply. Yeah. All right. So yeah, something like that, right? So now we can go back to ZBrush. I'm gonna go ahead and save as a JPEG. Let's go back to ZBrush now. Cool. So in that sphere, or the spheres that we have here, right? We can go ahead and change to a different material. So we can go for toy plastic, right? Or we can go for chrome, or any of those. Let's actually go for chrome A. This is the one that I shared in the tip. It could be any matcap, right? The whole idea is that the image that we create is going to be the one driving the lighting and the colors or everything of that material. So it could be anything. I just use this Chrome A because it doesn't have that many settings to tweak. We can also subdivide this a couple of times. Yep, so it's a little bit nicer. Let's bring in the material palette now to the right and open up the modifiers. So here's where the trick of this thing is. So in the modifiers palette, all of the matcaps would be driven by an image, right? It's just a texture. But before I do that, I'm gonna add some more intensity in the, actually let's bring in the texture and then we tweak that later. So that was set to 1. I'm gonna click on this RGB texture gradient and I'm gonna click on import and I'm gonna select the eye that I did in Photoshop. And that's it, we have eyes. It's as simple as that. Now this would work because this is a sphere, so it's basically a projection of that image that we have in Photoshop. So it's just that projection, right? But obviously we can tweak things. We can make it a bit more reflective and that sort of thing. So we can just copy that material using this thing right here, the copy shader, and we can go to a different material, like let's say the double shader or the triple shader, whatever you want to do, right? So I'm going to keep it simple, double shade, and I'm going to go to the first slot, this one right here, and I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to turn off the other one, right? So in the first one, we control the eye itself, and in the second one, we can turn that on, and we can create like that sort of highlight. So I'm going to remove the ambient occlusion, reduce the diffuse, and increase the specular highlight like so, and maybe just tweak this a tiny bit more just to increase the highlight a bit, It's too much. Something like that should be fine. And I'm gonna push the diffuse all the way just to so you guys know what I'm doing. But I'm just gonna basically tweak this this curve to generate something like that, like a pattern, like around the bottom. And then I'm gonna use the colorize diffuse, this one right here, to colorize the diffuse. Right now I'm colorizing it with black color, that's why it disappeared. But I can just make sure that it's 100%. Go to colorize diffuse here, and it's just add a kind of like a bluish tone, like so, right? And then obviously we can tone it down. So just wanna have tiny bit of that coming through. Maybe it's too harsh, that division. Yeah, something like that. Not too bad. So that's it, right? Just a quick tweak of the material. Now we go to the rest, and look at that, right? So everything is using that material, which is super weird, right? But and that's what I'm saying. Like, you can create these things, and it's basically gonna be a projection. So obviously the head, um, the organic shape of the head will distort that projection, obviously, because it's based on the normals, right? So let's say this point right here in the middle, that line, is always going to be facing that normal of the sphere. So it's always facing the camera. So that's why, you always see that kind of like in the middle, no matter where you rotate. And that's why the character is kind of like always looking at you. But yeah, so basically what you can do is take the eyes, go to the material palette, and let's click on fill object. What happened there? Oh, I have polypaint on these ones because I use the macro. All right, so the material is working on these ones. I just need to go to the RGB and fill it with a white color, and there we go. And yeah, so now we can switch back to our working color, and then we have the eyes. And this is what I'm saying, that it's a little bit creepy. Like, we have cool eyes for this creature, but they're always going to be looking at you no matter what you do, because of the nature of that madcap. So it's constantly judging you. On top of this, what you can do as well is add a bit of contrast. So just using the standard brush, turn it into an RGB. You can paint. So this is just the material with no polypaint, or the polypaint is white, but you can use further colors of this. By the way, this is another cool trick. So I can actually pick a hue or a color of the eye itself, or the material, if I hold the Alt key. So I can just click and drag just normally, and you see nothing happens. I'm just picking up color information, so RGB information. If you hold the Alt key, you're actually picking up RGB and material information. So that's why I can just choose a color like this, and let me just go a bit smidge darker. And you see I'm also painting with this. So I can just give this kind of like a painted ambient occlusion, kind of. And you can, use a different color like this and combine it. Obviously, this is going to overlay the color itself with the material color, or like that image that we use as the material. So it's kind of like if you add green as polypaint, now you have, an interesting looking eye, but it's just overlaying the color of the image that is carried with the material and the color itself. So basically you have two layers of stuff. One is the color itself. So if I turn off, well, in this case, yeah, if I go to flat, this is the color that ZBrush is using. So a bit of green and a bit of brown. That's the color in the polypaint. So each vertex that I painted has that color. But then you also have material, and the material, because we did this thing in Photoshop, is carrying that information as well. So ultimately what we're doing is overlaying color and the material information, which also has color, and that's why you get this kind of effect, which is pretty cool, I think. Okay, so we have about half an hour with this guy. Let's go ahead and do a couple of blend shapes. I mean, we're gonna keep it like sketchy like this, but just to make it look cool, let's just paint this guy. just a quick polypaint, a work in progress polypaint. I'm gonna go through this. I've done a few live streams where we do polypaint as well, so I'm gonna try to keep this short. I'm not gonna go into too much depth explaining what I'm doing here because I've covered that, and I just want something so that it doesn't look that bad. But then after this, we can move on and do the other cool stuff that I want to show you, which are the blend shapes. Oh, by the way, guys, I forgot to say in my YouTube channel. So if you go to my YouTube channel, there is a brand new tutorial as well that I released this morning, and that tutorial is about posing characters in ZBrush. So I also covered a couple of techniques with the layers, which are pretty cool, and I think you're gonna like it. So yeah, I don't have a link here, but if someone has, or if anyone knows what I'm talking about my channel, maybe you can just post a link here. That would be good, so that everyone knows what I'm talking about. Just trying to go a little bit faster here. But yeah, so if you're keen to know like how I post characters or another way to post characters in ZBrush, by all means check that out, and you can subscribe to the channel as well, so you know when I post new things in there. It's growing. My channel is growing slowly but surely, which is great. All right. I'm gonna paint these guys as well. All right. I think that's good enough as a quick sketch. Now we can go back to these. Let's turn off poly paint so that we can see the sculptural part, or like the structure of these. Where's the link to the post tutorial? It's in my YouTube channel. Let me just see if I can share it quickly. Dash content. Hang on a second. Got it. All right. So I will put it in the chat. Here you go. So that's the latest tutorial on posing characters in ZBrush. But yeah, so feel free to go there, and obviously there you'll see the channel as well, and you can just subscribe there if you want, more of those tutorials. That one is it's a pretty long one, really. It's about an hour or something like that, but I cover a lot of ground and a lot of like mistakes as well. So it's not I don't think it's like the usual format for YouTube. It's not like one of those videos that you can just consume in like 5 minutes or two. It has a lot more content, so um, see how it goes. See if you guys are interested in that type of lengthy tutorials or not. We'll see how it goes. All right, so what I'll do is I'm gonna take this head. In fact, what I'll do is I'm gonna merge all of these things just so that it's easy to move things. Yeah, let's merge those down. Merge down. Okay, merge down. Okay. All right. Now I'm also gonna make sure I have separate pieces or separate polygroups rather. So this is gonna be a polygroup. And another one here. This mouth won't close with the teeth like this. Ha! Wait and see. They will. They will close. I will make it work. Have you seen a baboon? You know, you can, when they like yawning, you can think like, well, what's going on here? How can they close their mouth? But that's how the rest of the, we have the rest of the mesh to play around with that. All right, so let's go to layers. Click on new layer. So now it's recording for all that mesh itself without the eyes, obviously. And turn on perspective. And I'm gonna be a little bit more cautious about how I mask this guy now. Oops. Make sure I don't have Dynamesh either anymore. So first I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna open the mouth a bit more actually. So that's gonna be the first layer. Let's invert that and work on this area a little bit here in terms of the masking. Yep, bring in the gizmo. So that's like a pretty nasty expression. Before I clear the mask, I'm going to use the move brush to adjust some of the main shapes a little bit. Maybe invert the mask. I'm going to use a bit more. Clear the mask. And then bring in the smooth brush and smooth everything out. All right, so this is when I mean, there are some things that I need to do to fix this even further. But I'm not going to be able to redynamesh because obviously we have layers. So if I redynamesh, I will lose that property. I'm going to use like clay brushes just to build that volume around that and sort of like close these gaps. And add, all the fat in this area. Right, but this is the point where I can start to think about, okay, how does this thing actually works, right? So when you open the mouth like this, all of these, maybe all of this sort of moves forward a little bit because it's like pulling down. Oops, and before I do that, let me mask out the teeth and the eyes so that I don't move them. So the jaw, when it opens like that, it will potentially just push or pull all the skin down and it will slide like so. And maybe it will retract this a bit more, kind of like a baboon. As it pulls down from this area, this thing goes up. and even the nose can get, or the nostrils can get a little bit more crinkly. That's the word. And because there is less structure in this area, like in the sides of the cheeks, that could potentially create some more hollow areas. So it will pull down, but there's no bony structure in that area that could sort of hold it together. So things are going to go in a bit. Right, and of course we can go back and keep refining this with the move brush. Sorry, with the clay brush and this smooth brush. So now maybe there's kind of like a tendon or something in here that is anchored into the cheekbone, and that's the one that pulls all of that up. But when it's down, it's sort of like more visible. Anyway, so this is obviously made up stuff, but if you think about the functionality of the design that you're doing, it sort of helps. Yeah, it helps a lot to describe what you're doing and make it a bit more realistic. So maybe actually let's make the again with the masking brushes. I'm gonna take the lower lid and just push it up, kind of like to emphasize that expression about a lot more. Kind of like in, so for instance, if you you've probably seen this and you know about it, but when you're in a birthday party and you're asked to, oh, let's take a photo, and everyone's like, oh, I smile. A lot of the people will do like a fake smile, uh, obviously, but forced to smile. But you will realize that it is a fake smile, especially if the lower eyelids stay down. So if you just smile without actually squinting your eyes, that's like a giveaway that is a fake smile. So the same thing happens with the movement of, if it is not a smiling, but like in this case, kind of like anger or creating this type of expressions. A giveaway that it's a fake one is if there is no movement in the eye. So when you move something like this, or when you create this type of expression, there's a lot of things that are going on, or that should be going on, and moving certain pieces. So it's not just moving the jaw up and down. So let me exaggerate this even more. And that sort of creates that additional expression line in here. So all I'm doing here really is just thinking about that movement of like pulling that all of that facial muscles and mass and fat on this creature up, and what that would mean for the not for the expression, but like what the expression would, what's the consequence in the rest of the face as I create that expression in a way. And I feel like we can add a bit more fat in this area, just pulling things out a bit. All right, pretty cool. Now, let's see. How do you read topo? Zero measure is random? No, it's pretty good. Like you just need to help the zero measure with certain things, but it's a pretty awesome automated tool. No, nothing is gonna beat the manual read topology, which you can also do in ZBrush. But zero measure is an awesome tool. I use it all the time. You can guide the like guides and polygroups and a whole bunch of different things that you can do to guide the placement of the loops with the zero measure. Could you not draw the pupil on the texture but make an object inside the eye instead, so that the eye doesn't always look at the camera? Yeah, you could do that, but that's just creating a material to put on top. It's not necessarily building an eye. That's kind of like having two spheres, so one with the pupil and the iris and the sclera, and another one with the reflections with transparency. That's kind of like the equivalent, I suppose. I think I'm gonna exaggerate this a bit more, just because I feel they should be closer. All right, so let's have a look at this. Hopefully I haven't been using, no. Cool. All right, so we have that, and now we can go like that, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna set this to 0, add a new layer. I'm gonna turn off polypaint again. And let's go ahead and, this is gonna be the tricky one. Let's go ahead and close the mouth. So pretty much the same idea. You can blur the mask if you want to. There are certain areas that I would prefer not to, but in this case, here at the bottom, probably a good idea just to blur it a bit. And inside as well. All right, so this one is gonna be the tricky one. I mean, it's all right. We'll make it work. It's rotating around there. See, it's not too bad. All right, clear that mask. And let's go ahead and refine all of this. We can actually mask everything here so that we don't touch the rest. And using the another thing you can do is actually, we should have just created another polygroup here so that we can refine this a bit more, but you know, we can do it here as well. It's not gonna be perfect, but it should be fine. So I'm just trying to create a polygroup there. Yeah, it should be fine. So, oops. So this is what I'm trying to do. Control W, so that we have a different polygroup there, and then we can mask this easily when we bring in things down again. So the teeth are still masked, and I'm just gonna bring in the lips down. So you see, even with the move topological, there's gonna be a point that things are starting to move. So that's why I'm gonna hold Control and Shift, mask this area, and bring this down like so. maybe invert that mask again. So this is just a matter of playing around with masking and selection. And I actually want to see a bit more of that tooth. So all of this skin gets kind of like squashed by that. The canine, if you will. Right? Or maybe not. Maybe that's too much. All right. All right, so now just again thinking about the whole process, maybe when this is done, this is a little bit more relaxed. Things are not pulling, as much, and all of this can be relaxed a bit more. And maybe we have some buildup of actual fat around here, and this is all the, let's say, all the mass that gets stretched. Let's clear the mask as well. And maybe let's pull this one forward a bit more. So all of these would be all of the fat and all the mass that gets pulled when he opens the mouth. So quite a bit of a build up here. And obviously, because there is a buildup here of whatever fat and muscles on this area, I would say, maybe now there's the wrinkle here, or the eyelids fold. It's a bit more prominent because it's kind of like if you're pushing all of this, all of your cheek up, is going to create that fold basically. Let me see the chat. Cool. All right, so here's the creature. We have about 15 minutes, so if you guys have any questions about anything that I've been doing, feel free to put them in the chat. I might just leave it there. But now we have two blend shapes, so two layers that we can not combine, but we can export as like different objects. Is using exactly the same mesh. Obviously, this is ideal to do it if you have already a retopologized version of your model. This is still a Dynamesh, but as a concept with a quick polypaint that works really, really well. So let's just do a quick save just in case, and turn off perspective. Right. So now we can open the mouth a little bit. So you see what this is doing. And then at some point you go like, you know what, this guy is really mad. So yeah, you can play around with that sort of animation and export the blend shapes. So you see all of the nice kind of like sliding here of the muscles when I open the mouth, and how that sort of changes in terms of the folds. Obviously, it's still like a linear animation, but it works. Yep. Okay. I think that's good for now. We can do is, let me just do a couple of screenshots so you can see like the progression of it. So let's go to mouth close. The mouth is closed in here. Shift S. Hang on, didn't do it for some reason. Shift S. There we go. Then it's open the mouth a little bit. Shift S. And then full open. That doesn't show it very well. Let me just do it a little bit further. All right, Shift S. Semi-open. Shift S. And mouth closed. Cool. So you see the progression, and as a way to to create this type of concepts is it's really easy to do this type of things, and it just gives an added value to your concepts as well. My God, I love it. How you doing? Where can blend shapes be used in actual animation, films, games? Yeah, in films, animation. I don't know about games. I mean, yeah, maybe. Um, yeah, mostly for animation, I suppose. And I wouldn't use blend shapes to open the mouth like that. That would be more part of like joints, like the actual skeleton would you will be able to open the mouth like that. But with the blend shapes, you can adjust like all these things, like what I've talked about, the the mass distribution, and what muscles are pulling and flexing and that sort of thing. That's what I would use the blend shapes for, just to adjust things. Same thing with the eyes. For the eyes, as in a rig, I would use the joint, like a joint in the eye, to drive the rotation of the eyelid. Because, like I said, blend shapes are linear. So if you use blend shapes to close the eye, it will just be a linear transition between open and close. So it will go through the eye. Whereas if you use a joint to like a skin the eyelid, you can just rotate around, and it will be a better driven um, sliding of the of the skin, but it really depends on the project. I just wanted to show you some ideas, and this is how I use it for my concepts as well. I like that you took the character from one extreme to the other. Yeah, so that's part of the idea as well, to show the progression. Cool. Really glad that you like it. No worries. And just to wrap it up, we still have like about 10 minutes. Just want to show you one more time for those of you who are just tuning in. Today I just released a brand new, open this space to enroll for a brand new workshop. It's called the Creature Workshop, the end-to-end ZBrush, or the ZBrush end-to-end Creature Workshop, basically taking you from scratch. We're gonna design things from the very beginning all the way through the final kind of like presentation and compositing. So if you're interested in that, you can go ahead and I'll put the link here in the chat one more time, but it's this one right here. If you're interested, this is the creature workshop. So this animator gives you an idea of where we're gonna aim for. So this is the final image that we do in ZBrush and Photoshop. So you don't need anything else. It's just ZBrush. I'm gonna walk you through my personal workflow as to create an image based on renders from ZBrush and put it into Photoshop. So you can have all the information about the workshop in here. This is a quick kind of like trailer overview demo that I did just to give you an idea of what the workshop is like and what to expect. But it's a live workshop, so it is happening on Monday, the 21st of June. So about 26 days from now. So you have from now until a few days before the actual workshop to enroll. Because I do have limited seats, it's gonna be a live workshop. So you can reserve and grab your spot as soon as you can to ensure that you can make it. And yeah, the first 50 spots will get also a couple of bonus lessons or a bonus content, sorry. So there's gonna be a live Q&A after we finish with the whole workshop. There's gonna be another day where it's just gonna be kind of like feedback, and we can talk about the experience and what worked and what didn't, and what if you have specific questions about the workflow and the workshop itself. So that's gonna be kind of like a bonus lessons or bonus live Q&A for the first 50 spots. For the workshop. But yeah, that creature is kind of like what as a reference, that's what I'll be aiming for in terms of the quality. But the whole point of this is that it's kind of like a more systematic approach, so you can replicate the steps and replicate the whole system to do any creature that you want. So I'm super excited because that creature I managed to like create it in 5 days. So I've been working for like the past few months just setting it up in a way that I could reach this level of quality, reach this point in a workshop that I can teach in only 5 days. So that's the whole point of the workshop, to be able to create a high quality portfolio piece in just those 5 days of the workshop. And yeah, so hopefully that's interesting for some of you guys that are into creatures. I'm really excited because I basically blocked out my calendar. So that week from the 21st and the 25th, that whole week for me is just gonna be only ZBrush and having a good time with you guys or whoever joins. Yeah, and I don't do anything else but that. So that's kind of like for me, it's kind of like holidays in a way, but doing awesome work as well. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. But yeah, so if you have any questions about this, let me know. The chat, I'm happy to answer those. The workshop is 5 hours long. No, it's actually 15 hours, so it's about 3 hours a day, with a little break in between. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of work. So it's not it's not like a quick thing that you can just learn and do. There's actually a lot of work to do. So if you join, you need to be prepared for putting the hours and making sure that you apply the system that I'm gonna teach to create something like this. Is it full body or bust? Yeah, that's totally up to you, really. Like the steps that I'm gonna show in the workshop are essentially what you need to apply to anything, right? So maybe for myself, I would create just the bust, right, or just the head. It really depends on what we try to aim to design together. But then it depends on how far you want to take it. So those hours of the workshop I will show you the whole process and the whole steps. But then you can make a creature with 3 heads, right? Obviously, that's 3 times the amount of time that you would spend in one head. But it's the same thing. It's just how much time you want to put after the workshop and that sort of thing. So it's just really that's what I'm excited about. Like it's just a more systematic approach, like I said, of building concepts and creating stuff like this, so that you can apply it to anything. Do you have a non-intensive course for people with kids? Yeah. So if you go to the to the 3D Concept Artist website, things like, for instance, the Extra Mile, the ZBrush for Illustrators, the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, or even any of the free workshops that I have, those are self-paced. So basically, if you join, you can go at your own pace. So I have students in the extra mile, for instance, which, by the way, I'm hoping to open soonish. We'll see how we go with the with the other course. You know, I have students that have been in the extra mile for a year, right? Because they go slowly at their own pace, and that's the whole point. Like, you can adjust it to your own schedule. It starts 9 a.m. Australian, so this should display in your local time, perhaps. I haven't actually checked that, but this is what you should be looking for. 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's basically the same time that I start my live workshops here with in the Pixologic channel. So at 9 a.m. my time, which is what we're doing. So around now, we will be like 2 hours in the workshop. We still have 1 hour, but like halfway through this second hour, we do like a break. Because I have it like structured in, like, I call it blocks of like different times, time slots. So each block is different. Yeah. Oh, did it? Awesome. So yeah, automatically changes the time. That's great. I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, so it displays your local time maybe. So for me, it's 9 a.m. Australian time. If you don't, there's this tool actually. Hang on. Yeah. It's called Time Buddy or World Time Buddy. Just in case, just to be 100% sure, you can just put your time zone. So if you're in Los Angeles right now, and the workshop in Melbourne my time, you see AEST standard, Australian Eastern Standard Time would be 9 a.m. So you can click 9 a.m. So you know, in London might be a little bit too late, but you know, if you're a late person, you can do Tuesday this time, for example. So yeah, this is just a quick one, and I think I put it somewhere in here. Oh, maybe not. But yeah, should display in your local time. Just make sure that you read this, because that's where the thing starts. And anyway, once you join and all of that, there's like a series of emails that I'm gonna send with, like, you know, more information, how to join, what to prepare, all of those sort of things. So yeah, I hope to see you guys in there. Because it's gonna be really, really cool. I'm super excited about this one. It's gonna be a whole session of just ZBrush, and all you need is that ZBrush and Photoshop, really. Someone is getting an error in that website for some reason, but it works just fine for me. Not sure why that is. Maybe it is blocked or something. But so is it working for everyone, that website? Yeah. Camilo, does that work for you? Cool. Thank you. Yeah, so that's about it, guys, for me. I'm happy that I managed to go through it today, because again, I'm not feeling 100%, but I did want to show you all of this stuff. Cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it here, guys. Thank you so much again for joining in. Hopefully what I show you with these techniques is kind of like cool or interesting, and you can apply it to your own works and, you know, creatures and concepts. And yeah, and if you're interested in the creature workshop, I would love to have you there as well. Just bear in mind that I do have limited spots because it is live, so it's not like other courses that I have online. This one I have to sort of like close it as soon as I reach capacity, basically, because it's a live course. So if you want to join, make sure that you make the decision soonish. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you, guys, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Have a good one.